Hello, everyone. This is Dr. David Cox over at Skeen Library in the OSL, which stands for the Office for Student Learning. And along with a lot of the peer mentor programs and tutoring programs and the SRS that we interact with, one of the big important groups on campus is the group which helps with disability services, especially as they pertain to education. And we have the director of that program, Theresa Kappel, who is our guest today for Tech Spotlight. So hello, Theresa.
Hi, David. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So tell me, tell me something fun first, okay? Just that you like doing, so everybody gets to know you a little better as a person. Is there something that you really just jump into and love no matter what?
Reading.
Reading. Okay, well, that's a good one for a library. Okay, what type of reading do you do?
Really anything. I had a boss who told me that I was such a voracious reader because he would give me anything and I would read it. That is my
book reports?
I'm sorry?
Did you have to do book reports?
Yes, growing up, I had to do a lot of book reports. I actually had my degrees in history, so I did a lot of reading. I enjoy history books. I enjoy biographies. I enjoy fantasy, pretty much anything.
Now, what type of history do you like most? Just general history, I imagine, but is there a certain segment that you like better?
I really enjoy medieval history.
Ah, a medievalist. Yeah. You and Sarah need to talk.
Yes, my bachelor's and master's are in medieval history, so.
Awesome.
I've got a reading list for you, Theresa.
Okay. I will be happy to delve right in.
Yeah, and you better understand that Sarah will expect book reports.
No.
We can have discussions.
Just a conversation over margarita.
There we go. See, students, we have a great time in New Mexico. Okay. Now,
sorry, I'm gonna zip my lip now.
Thank you both. The concept I have is that when students come to the university, sometimes they're a little uncertain of where they should go if they need help. Mm-hmm. Now, we do have the OSL Office for Student Learning, and we have a great tutorial program. And oftentimes, if people need some personal help in the sense of what to do about this or who should I talk to, we have the peer mentors. But your help really can come to play in some very important ways from your office. So Theresa, talk to us about your office and how people interact with you and how you help them in educational matters.
Sure. So there's quite a few ways that we can actually help students. So many students, when they come to the university, they've left high school with a 504 plan or an IEP plan, which is just standard plans set into place to help students be successful in K through 12 school. When you come to college, you then go under the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the 504 Civil Rights Act. So in college, our job as disabilities providers is to make sure that there is access and that barriers are taken down. So you have a student who comes to New Mexico Tech who has ADHD, which is very common. So, your processing speed can be slowed down a little bit. Your distractibility is really high. The ability to focus can be really hard to do sometimes. So and your executive functioning skills have been depressed a little bit. And when you walk into college, all of a sudden you have to be in charge of who you are. When your classes are, you don't have a routine anymore. So a lot of students with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, learning disabilities, all of those kind of fall underneath those same skills. So students can come and we can sit down and talk about accommodations in the classroom. Some of the general accommodations for students are extended testing time, especially for students who have ADHD. Not that the time itself is super beneficial, it is the anxiety and the amount of time they can focus. So when they get distracted, they can come back to this test. They don't necessarily need more time to process, but they need more time to get back from the distraction that happened. So
they need a little chance to return.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So, and some of the other things that we work with, say, this last semester, we had a student who had an accident and broke both hands. So we found assistive technology so that the student could do their reports verbally and the computer would type it for them. Can also get scribes for students. So, you know, this particular student had math exams. They needed a scribe because most dictation software doesn't do high-level math.
Yeah, it still is pretty iffy.
Yes, it's still pretty iffy. So, you know, so those are some other things that we can help with. We have students who have mental health disabilities, you know, huge anxiety, especially with COVID. A lot of more students are getting diagnosed with COVID, depression, PTSD. We have veterans who return from war who have some things that they need to, you know, they just need a little bit of help within classrooms, you know, special seating, you know, some place where you can put your back against a wall, things like that. So it's all individualized when you walk into our office. There's no cookie cutter, no, you walk in and, oh, you have this, so this is what you're going to get. It's you walk in.
In other words, you're not dropped into a category. What you're dealing with is people individually, and you try to help them for the needs they specifically have. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm a dyslexic and have been for many, many decades now. And which is funny since I have degrees in linguistics and languages, which is just a hoot that dyslexia is a part of me. But, and that may be because I worked hard to learn languages.
Right.
But as a dyslexic, if I were to come to this place, you probably have some things that might help me, or at least, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So, you know, dyslexia, it's been around for a very long time. It hasn't been considered a learning disability for as long as some other ones, but New Mexico actually passed a reading law in 2019, where they're testing all first graders in the state of New Mexico for dyslexia. So, but if you come to my office and you have dyslexia and you're looking for some new ways to read your books, you know, we have audiobooks that we can provide. We can, if we can't find an audiobook, we can find PDFs or readable books so that you can have screen readers that will read the books for you. There's some technology out there as far as the way that, because there's different types of dyslexia.
Right.
I'm not super familiar with all of them, but you know, if you came and you had a particular type, I would do some research. And so, you know, some people find that blue screens are helpful for them.
Yes.
It doesn't help with the cognitive processing, but it helps with the readability.
There's some fonts I know too that have been especially created for dyslexics. And when I first looked at them, I was, you know, I read pretty well now, though I shift things as, you know, and I tell my brain to reshift them basically. But right. But this font was very interesting because as I was reading through, it really was taking that on. You know, I could sense in my brain that it was attaching at the right spot. And so I do think there's a number of things that have come up that are better than whatever used to be for dyslexics. And that's just the way it is. With disabilities, you know, these things are more common than people realize. And they are also able to be helped in an educational setting. So can you tell us another story about somebody you were helping that you can do without, you know, of course, in not violating their
right. No,
you know.
Absolutely. So trying to think, you know, mental health is one of the biggest ones right now. You know, there's just so much anxiety and depression and just trauma in our world. You know, adverse childhood effects really affect students when they're getting to college. A lot of mental health diagnoses happen between the ages of 18 and 25. So when students initially get diagnosed, they don't know who to go to talk to. They don't know what kind of support systems and systems are out there. You know, we have our wonderful counseling center on campus for the therapy part. But then when they get medication for the first time, students can get really sick. You know, the first week of new medications, they can be throwing up, they can be really tired, they're just not functioning correctly.
Well, if it's brain chemistry, of course, you got to expect something's going to happen.
Right, absolutely. So for students who first get diagnosed, we can be one of those places that they go, and we can help set up some accommodations for extended assignments, some attendance leniency, some of these things that they don't even know are out there. So, because it's super hard. And when you first get diagnosed, a lot of times your parents are not sure what to expect either. So they don't know who to send you to either. So, it's just an opportunity to have somebody to talk to and see if there isn't something we can do to help with your classroom and what's happening in your classes.
I have a son who's autistic, and he does pretty well, but he's a high functioning autistic, but still there is that cognitive side for him that he sometimes gets kind of hit with from time to time. And autism being more of an emotional issue than it is a mental one can be really frustrating as well because of that. So I guess maybe at the library we try, and I think at OSL we try to figure out workarounds for people, because the folks who are geniuses in this world, many of them had to work to become as such. They, whether you go with Einstein, wondering if he was going to make it through grade school until he becomes Einstein, of course, you get to that point where you realize that this is a process. And how do you make people comfortable with the idea that if maybe they didn't know, they knew something might be off within, but they didn't know what it was, they'd always been able to work around it. All of a sudden, they're in a stressful environment, like coming into school is here at New Mexico Tech. It's very, very great institution, and a lot is expected when you're working. And how do you help them through that process? Let's say somebody comes in and says, is there a way that I could be tested for something? Because I think there's something going on. And how does that work? That's kind of like your induction, I suppose, into your program.
Well, we don't do any diagnosis. We do have some resources around the state. New Mexico doesn't have a lot of resources for some types of testing, like dyslexia. There's 2 sources that I know of in the state, and one is at UNM, and it's about 6 to 9 months to get in for testing for dyslexia. If somebody is struggling and they believe that they might have ADHD, we have a couple of resources in town that do testing for ADHD. If it's a mental health situation, I generally try to send them to the counseling center first.
And then Angela helps with those things.
Angela helps with them, and then find some resources for them in town. There are a few resources in town. As far as, let's say somebody walks in and they're like, I never had a problem in high school. High school was a breeze. I don't know why. All of a sudden, I cannot understand anything that my professors are saying.
Understood. Yep.
And so generally what we do at that situation is we sit down and we have that interactive process. We ask the curious questions. We do a lot of reflective conversation, help people figure out what has changed from high school to college. A lot of times it's more pressure. So, your cognitive load is increased, your working memory isn't doing quite the way that it was in high school, because you're way more stressed. Transitions are hard. So we usually work through that process, figure out what has changed and how classrooms are different in college than they are in high school.
Sure. So classroom settings are just by themselves are different. Absolutely. Okay.
And not having routine can really affect that also.
Sure. So really, I think one of the things you would suggest is if anybody has an IEP from, say, like K through 12, or
Mhm.
a learning arrangement or agreement, that they could help you if they brought that by, and you're going to treat them very well, and there's not going to be any stigmas or nothing, okay? Because your job is to bring them in and help them succeed. So if they do have some records of that, like Stephen had a record with an IEP, I'm thinking that this gives you, for a lack of a better term, a leg up. All of a sudden, you've got maybe some testing that's already been done, or diagnosis that's already been made, and it gives you much more quick response than, say, waiting to try to figure something out.
Right, absolutely. So, in generally, when we have students who are transitioning from high school to college, you have two types of, actually, there's probably more like 200 types of students as they're walking in, right? But
Yeah,
as a general rule, you have about three. Mom and dad are going to make sure you come and see me because they want to make sure that you have all the resources available to you.
right.
You, as a student, have decided you're not going to use disability services because of what you said earlier, David.
Yep. Stigma.
They've been looked at differently. They've assumed that, other students have assumed that there's something that's wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with us. We don't need to be fixed. It's
No.
How can we move forward,
Right.
and find the resources so that we do succeed, And my job at the higher ed is not success. It's the student's job. My job is access, to make sure that the barriers are removed as much as we possibly can. So, and then you have those students who they want to come, but they're like, nope, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to make it work because I'm an adult now. So a lot of times students do the first semester or half the first semester, and then they're like, oh, I need some help. So then they start reaching out to different people, their advisors, and their advisors can lead them to the counseling center. They can lead them to Elaine and the Student Success Center. They can lead them to me, just depending on what needs to be set up for them. So, but absolutely, if you have a 504 and IEP and you're a high school student, or if you're 2 years into college and you're like, okay, I've struggled long enough, what can I do? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you don't have to do it in the first 2 days.
No,
And discover something and come see you. Okay. My wonderment here is that there's other stigmas at this school, not because I think people are trying to give them, but it's that personal feeling sometimes people have. I think both Sarah and Katie, who are on with us, could talk to you about the hesitancy of some students to admit they need help. And Sarah and I have chatted about this a lot, and Katie and I, about the fact that really, if you let's say you were a hot shot in high school, okay, you didn't really have to study, you just kind of got things pretty naturally, and so you got to college and you said, what in the world just hit me? Okay, so you come here and you might have had like a 3.5, 3.6, 3.7 or something like that, and you come here and you wonder, how in the world am I going to transfer all of that to this setting? And Sarah, I know, is an instructor. We have Sarah going to different classes and things. I think runs into this question a fair amount as well, because she's trying to teach people where to go to get information. And she sees the hesitancy. I see it at the CERC desk as well as Sarah does, that there are students that sometimes are afraid to come up and ask us a question in the library because they're afraid they'll look dumb or something. And I don't know where they got that, but I got to tell students, there isn't a person who has made it in their profession who hasn't been asking questions. And they have moved through whatever difficulties they have because they were asking questions. Sarah, I see your mic's on. Why don't you make a comment?
Oh, I just wanted to echo what you said, David, that, yeah, I just you see that hesitancy, and I see a lot of myself and the students too when I was younger and not wanting to ask for help, thinking that I had thinking that it was dumb if I didn't know the answer. And but going into the classrooms and seeing how the students' minds work, I mean, I learn something from them every time I visit. And you know, your information is your own, right? If you're working with Theresa, but I happen to come visit you in class, I don't know that you know, so it's not like we go and talk about, you know, the students
We don't all have sheets with names on it and
who
pictures.
need all those accommodations, you know, so you know, it's just to maybe assure the students there that, you know, even if we're visiting, you know, we don't know that you might have an accommodation. And
Yes.
but yeah, it's always great to help the students find what they need and listen to them, listening and really absorbing what they're trying to say and figure out what the best way forward is to get them that information. Because like with Theresa, we're all about access too.
Mm-hmm.
We're not it's the student's job, like you said, Theresa, to succeed, and it's our job to help them succeed and
work with them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking when I taught a few years back, I taught an ethics class here for computer science and IT. And I invited anyone in the class who might have any accommodations to please take time when they could come and let me know, and I'd be happy to hear it so I would understand and try to help them in the midst of that. Okay, so, and sure enough, some people came and told me very straightforward right away. We got to a test. I got notes from your office, I'm fairly sure, that said they needed extra time in a test. I mean, things like that. We really try, at least I tried as a part-time faculty member and as a librarian here, to allow for a student to not only self-disclose, but to feel safe in that. And I'm sure Sarah does the same thing. So I was going to say, I know you refer folks over to the OSL, right?
All the time.
How does that work for you when you're doing it? Are we doing better than we might have been? Are we getting information enough to help you or get you maybe the right tutors? How does that all work?
Well, most of the time students don't know what kind of tutor they need. So just actually getting them to a tutor, and Katie has been awesome. Every time I've asked her for anything specific, she's gone on her way to help. I've learned with the new system that and Zoom is great for this, right? I can have a student on Zoom and we can walk through, okay, this is how we set this up. This is how you go and do this. So that has worked out really well. We all know with COVID and not doing things in person, it's very difficult. And it's students with learning disabilities, ADHD, change, autism spectrum, it's been hard.
Very
really hard. But I think this semester is better than last semester was. And I think that students learning how to ask for that help that you guys were just talking about, it's a skill that most of us did not learn as kids, on how to ask for help and how important it was and how important it is to remember that none of us get through anything without our team. You know,
right.
we have to have our support system or else we're not going to be able to get through. So, and I talk to students a lot about that, especially when they're scared to go to the OSL. They don't know what to expect. You know, that first time for most things, you know, students who, and like Sarah said, I see myself a lot in some of these students, like the first time they need to go talk to an instructor about their accommodations. You know, just me offering to be in the room with them sometimes is just enough for them to go. I don't say anything. I just go with them.
Sure.
You know, that's all they need.
You are there as support to them emotionally, morally, whatever you want to call it. And it's out of them that this stuff comes. I do know we have Katie and Sophie both here, and I'm sorry They always shudder when I start leaning on them a little too hard. But the idea, I think, is Katie could tell us. I think we have two different types of tutorial styles here. And we'll have a third one coming by the fall, which will be the old style, being at a table, okay? And we have lots of nice glass top tables so that a tutor could actually sit down next to somebody and work with them on a clear glass table with a Sharpie, let's say, and write out stuff. And it's not a threatening situation. It's not like, oh, I'm the tutor, so I'm going to stand over your shoulder. That's not how it works. We want to be companions in inquiry. We want to help you find basically a concept, learn it, and be able to take that journey on your own. See, those are the things we do. Katie, how would you add to that?
Yeah, the tutors are trained to adapt to specific needs of the tutee. So, whatever the learning style may be, they are trained to offer, many different types of responses. So if a student prefers visual learning, they are have more emphasis on visual. And there are different ways we have of seeing tutors right now. So we have the appointment-based, which is really good for people who would prefer to plan ahead of time. And then we also have some drop-in on the schedule as well, and it's all on Discord. And I know they're all looking forward to going back to in-person where they can use those tables. And yeah, we try to make it to where it's not a threatening environment. And like David said, the tutors are there to work alongside the student and just go with them. And the tutors don't have all the answers either, but they're a companion to help people learn and to help people find the answers.
Yeah, I think, the Discord channels, we use those for peer mentors as well. And you probably are going to actually see this interview on a Discord channel anyway. But the thing is that both of those settings Katie talked about have a whiteboard, an interactive whiteboard electronically. You can actually see, on some of this, see the actual tutor. I mean, it feels about as good as we can make it virtually. Okay, yeah, and yet I do know a lot of people are just chomping at the bit to get into the OSL because OSL is on the first floor of the Skeen Library. And as you will learn, if you're a new student, you'll come in through the main doors and you'll hang a right, okay? You'll hang a right at the circulation desk and you'll walk just, not very far. And all of a sudden you'll be in an area where there's a lot of tables and they'll have things on them like green and red flag types of things. Whereas if you don't need any help and you're just there doing your homework, no problem, put the red flag up. If there's something there in your homework you're scratching your head on, you can flip the green flag and a tutor, if they're there, can come over and see what it is. See, so you can do homework there. You can work through issues. Maybe you didn't quite get the concept in calculus, let's say, that was being taught. Our tutors are trained to not only remember what they learned when they were calculus, but they try to kind of what I would say sharpen up the concepts of that week. So as you're going through, the tutors are able to latch in with you to a concept that is current. And I think that's really important. Katie, I see your microphone's on. What, do you have some other things on that?
Yeah, something else I'd like to add that I think is really cool is people can take a buddy or two along, and
sure.
if they're too nervous to go by themselves, they can take a friend along and just do the session together and have a more informal study session or homework session. So I think that's a great thing for people who are nervous about their first time at a tutoring center.
So sometimes being an introvert is awfully painful because you have to work at asking the question, let alone trying to get what you really need out. If you're with the OSL or if you're with the Disability Center or whatever, the work is not as tough as you think when it comes to that. We will help. We'll try to listen. We'll try to apply things. And that's one of the things I think is really important about what you do, Theresa. You really allow a student to come in as they are and work with them as they are. And then how do you make them succeed? So I like that very much. We have a sign in the OSL that says that genius is not something that is born in a person, but it's something that you get while you learn and work through a good study pattern. Okay, so I think there's a lot of PhDs out there who had to learn how to learn, so to speak, when they went to university. And part of their thirst in their field is because they had to learn how to learn. So, and I think even our professors are like that. They're very, very good. They get excited to be with students. And we've got a friend named Dave Westfall who says there's 3 things to be able to do well in class. He's a physics professor. Don't get scared, okay? He's a physics professor. And he says, attend class. That's number 1. 2, turn in homework, okay? Even if it's having issues or something, you turn in your homework so you can see where the issues are so he can help you. 3, talk to the professor. He says, you do those 3 things, the chances for you passing the class are pretty doggone good. It's a simple way to do it, but yes, you have to work. So, Sophie, you got something you want to share? Sophie is one of our coordinators for the OSL, and she's here online as well with us. I don't know if Sophie is ready to share anything or not, but you may.
Hi. No, I don't think I have anything right now. Thanks, huh?
Okay. So Sophie gets hit harder than Katie does, I think, with my craziness. So, but yeah, it's any of us that are on this you may be watching, David, Theresa, Sarah, Sophie, Katie, we're all very willing to try to listen and understand things. I think that's really essential. So Theresa, excuse me, as you have worked with students through the years, what's it like to watch them grow, to blossom, let's say, after coming here and feeling maybe intimidated or whatever, and all of a sudden they realize, I can do this. Talk about that.
Well, it's absolutely amazing is what it is. Generally the first time I meet students is generally with their parents. So, you see the student who is still a senior in high school, not really sure of themselves, walking into a situation that they're like, okay, I'm excited and I want to be here and it's going to be fun and new. And then the first semester comes and it hits them in the face a little bit and they're like, okay, what am I doing? And then they get their feet under them. It's usually the second or third semester, right? I mean, it takes a little time. They get their feet under them, and the next thing you know, they're juniors and seniors. They're doing research, and their professors are applauding them for the great work that they're doing. They're working on teams together, and figuring out how their junior design project is going. And then, this year is the first year I have graduates, students who are graduating that I started with. So, so it's like now they're off going to either grad school or to work or, and some of them didn't think that they were going to make it past the first semester, and the second semester got better and they asked them for more help. And, Dave Westfall has his 3, I have my 3. So my 3 are go to class, do your homework, and ask for help. Those are the biggest things. And
help's available.
Yeah, and help is available. We're all here to help. There's so many people on campus, and if you would walk up to an administrator, a faculty member, a staff member, and you said, I need this, they will find who you need to talk to. They really will. We're such a small community. Most of us know each other.
Absolutely. Sometimes students, I know, get a little nervous about their parents. Okay. I don't know if that's the best way to start this section, because there's this thing we talk about that is something called FERPA.
Mhm.
And FERPA is the law that basically says we are restricted without a student's permission to disclose information very quickly. Can you talk to me about that? How does that work when, of course, you've already met the parents and everything, and all of a sudden student gets here? Is that something that you've had to deal with, or how do you deal with it?
Oh, absolutely. So with disability services, the very first meeting we generally have with students is with their parents. It doesn't have to be with the parents, but most of the time it is, because they're still in high school a lot of times when they reach out, which is perfect. Please reach out when you're still in high school, because there's just things that we can just get in place faster and easier if we have a little bit of time. So if students meet with their parents, if the student wants to meet with their parents after they matriculate to the university, there's a release of information form that they have to sign.
Yep.
Telling me that I'm allowed to speak with their parents. But what I always tell parents and students, if a parent calls me, I'm going to call that student and tell them, your mom called me today, and these were the questions that she asked. And if it's something that I don't feel comfortable telling the parent, because it's something that the student should be disclosing to the
Right.
parent, I am very direct and upfront with the parents. And I tell them before we fill out the release of information form, that this is the way it's going to be. The student is now an adult, and as FERPA is protecting them, it is also my goal to make sure that the student is getting the education that they want to get, not the education that parents want to get.
Yes, and that's a hard one sometimes, I think.
And also, and as a parent with a student with autism, that sometimes parents with students on the spectrum or who have had to advocate for their children for a long time, it's really hard to let go.
Yes.
So just having somebody, like, they can call me and just talk. I don't respond. They just talk. Sometimes that's just helpful for the parent to just be able to say what they need to say and know that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. My sister, here's a story that doesn't have STEM implications, I don't think, but she wanted to go to a very prestigious art school for university and had been accepted. And my mother, God bless my mother, I love Mama. She's gone now, but she had a good heart and everything. But on this one, she wanted Cindy, who was the oldest of her children, which made it a little harder, to go to a general university rather than an art university, because she needed to get something that mother thought she needed, whatever it was. I still haven't discovered what that was, to be able to succeed in that, an art degree, all this type of stuff. Well, my sister, it took her, I think Cindy was 47 when she got her Bachelor of Science in psychology. Okay. And yet it helped her with a lot of the art stuff she did, but it took that long because Mama was Mama. Okay. And really kind of rattled her cage. When it came time for me to go to school, my dad actually pulled my mother to the side. He says, listen, Cindy didn't go because of what happened. He says, let me talk to David and leave him alone. Okay. And, my mama, I love Mama. Her heart was in the right spot, but it was hard for her to hear that. And I guess my word to students is that, sometimes these are hard conversations, but they're important ones. And sometimes if you need Theresa to be there as you're having them, maybe that's what you need, or the librarian or somebody else, or, it's not that we're there to take your side or there to somehow convince your parents. We're there to support you in trying to help them understand what you're thinking. Okay. It's more of that. And God bless my dad. What a deal. I finally went to university, and I was the first one in my generation go to university and graduate. Okay. So, and in my family. So it's, you know, when you're in those situations, there's also a little bit of a difference. You want to talk about that? Students that are first generation students. Do you deal with folks like that, I'm sure, too?
Oh, sure, absolutely. You know, and first generation students or students whose parents don't speak English, you know, there's
So bilingual parents and things.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of different barriers that are set up for them. You know, they don't understand financial aid. They don't understand how help works. Mom and dad don't want them to get help because of the stigma of whatever, you know.
Oh yeah, if you go to school and somebody had to help you pay for it, oh my goodness. Well,
Right.
there's a lot of people getting money here, people. Okay.
Absolutely. We want you to get money. We don't,
Yeah,
we want to help you pay for school.
Yeah. So,
You know,
so that's not a bad thing, guys and gals. It's not. Okay.
absolutely. You know, so, but parents get scared for their students when that happens, right? And they're not sure what next steps need to happen. Sometimes students kind of get themselves bogged down and trying to explain to mom and dad what next steps are. So if somebody from tech is there to help and, you know, just sit down with mom and dad and go, okay, so this is what is going to happen for your student in this situation, or,
Yeah.
you know, this is how we can help your student, you know, move forward on different things, you
You
know.
bet.
The most recent student that I had that was a first generation student, mom and dad didn't come to school with them, you know, and when I was going to school, that was common, you know, it not parents didn't always go to college for the first time with their kids, but it was hard for the student because everybody else's parents seemed to be around, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like they all had the support group. They're like, but my mom and dad didn't know that they needed to come. They didn't know what the process was.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so when you see students, especially the first during orientations and things, if they're all by themselves, reach out a little bit and just make
Yeah.
sure that, you know, that they know that there are supports here. And if mom and dad can't, or mom and dad are working and they can't get off of work.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I was in state college. It's now State University out in Washington State. And my parents didn't come with me the first time around. They weren't there when I registered. They weren't there when I went to class. They weren't there to check into, you know, how the library works, none of that stuff. Okay. It's rather interesting. I was able to go to another school in my second year, my sophomore year. And I invited my parents to come. This may sound strange, but I invited them to come. By that point, I had kind of had a few of the corners knocked off of me in my square head. But the idea, though, was is that then they felt like they could come.
right.
See, and I think that as an 18-year-old or whatever, I probably thought I was a hot shot and could do it all on my own. And by the time I was 19, I had learned that inviting the parents was a good thing. And they didn't harm anything when they were there. They knew I was going from place to place and doing things, signing up, getting registered, all these types of things. And they got to see the process. And after that, when I talked with them, they understood pieces of it, so it wasn't foreign. You see, sometimes you got to teach your parents. Now, don't quote me on that with your parents, okay? But sometimes you got to teach your parents, not because of anything other than the fact that they haven't experienced that yet. But you know what? Most of the time, I would think they will be supportive. So, and we try to be supportive as well at the university. It's very, very important. So, well, I'm running out of some questions to ask you, but that doesn't mean we can't sit and talk for a little while longer. What's one thing you really want to tell students as they come to tech for the first time?
Be kind to themselves. It's not going to be as easy as you think, especially if you skated by in high school. Tech can take the wind out of your sails for a little bit, but it'll be okay. It's just be nice to yourself.
Yeah, well, being an old sailor, being from Washington State on the coast, the one thing I learned is that in a boat, you can use the wind to go straight ahead, even when it's going right straight at you. You have to learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn how to tack. You'll have to learn how to play it. But it's not that the wind is your enemy. You just need to know how to play it. It's not that learning is your enemy. You just need to learn how to do it. Okay. And nobody will think twice if you're having to, I'll use the word tack, shift the sails, move a different direction, ask a different question, figure out how the physics of this, I'll use the physics of it because that's true. The physics of this has to be looked at differently. And there isn't anybody I know in the helping parts or the professors or anything. There will be people here who will help you learn how to tack. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you, tacking or not. I don't know if you've been sailing or not, Theresa, but I'm used to sailing, so it's the best I got.
It makes sense. I don't know how to sail, but I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, and for most of us, and I was growing up in Bellingham, they threw us out on boats pretty early because the boats were a good place for work. Mm-hmm. And so we learned how to do crazy things. There's not much tacking going on here in New Mexico, I have to admit, but there are a few lakes. I bet you if I went out there, I could sail. It would be okay. But, you know, but sailing, or the other analogy I guess I would do is that you're on a trail, okay? Because there's lots of trails here. Right. You'll learn that there's great places to go to get into nature and touch nature and have it touch you. But when you're hiking, you learn by not only remembering to wear the right type of boots, okay, and have the right type of clothing, or maybe even having a hiking stick to help you, but you learn by looking at a map to see the gradations of the levels of altitude, so that you can know how to plan for that. Well, those things happen here too. And I think the gradations of altitude is your first homework, it's your first test, it's writing a paper, it's, and guess what? Some of what you've done before that, and I think we try to structure it like that here, will prepare you for the next step. Mm-hmm. And with your department, with disability services and assistance, with the library, where we're, some people have never seen a real academic paper, for example, let alone know how to read it, let alone know how to let that paper show you how to make a report. Mm-hmm. I mean, you take a Sarah and she'll bring you through that one. She knows how to do that. One of the funnier ones that I've experienced myself and realize others need to experience is learning how to read a textbook. That may really sound foolish, like, well, I had a textbook in high school, but a textbook can show you how to pass a class if you read it correctly, because it'll show you what is most important to the concepts that you're going to be learning. Just because you have a textbook and somebody told you didn't have to read it and it's time to go have fun, doesn't mean that's going to help you. And so one of the things I think Katie and I've talked about, and I'll bet you Sophie will help with that too, is time management. With disabilities, I think time management's a little different. Can you just reflect on that with us just a moment?
Well, it just really depends, because it really goes back to the individual, right? So mm-hmm. for some students, time management is something that they struggle with every single day,
right?
And finding the tools that are effective for them, or that they have brought with them that was effective for them earlier, is really good. Finding new time management tools though for college, yeah. I know that I've talked to some students who have gone to the tutors and they've helped them with some time management.
Yeah, they have some workshops.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been super helpful. Finding the apps or whatever it is that works specifically for the student.
Yeah.
Just giving somebody a planner doesn't mean that the student's going to have time management skills. So.
Yeah, giving a planner is kind of like, you're giving somebody a can of vegetables, but you didn't give them a can of,
Right.
you know, I
Right.
mean, and you never told them how to use it, you know? Katie, we've talked about time management. I know the counseling center does it too, but you talked about maybe some workshops that maybe OSL might do as we go forward. And that's something that Sophie and Katie and I will talk about. But we're looking to try to figure out what would be the right workshops to help people. Time management would be one, I'm sure.
Time management is good. I know
How to study.
how to study or learn how you think.
Yep.
Because metacognition is something that a
Right.
lot of students are coming to school and they do not understand how they think.
Yeah. Metacognition is very important. And for all of you who are new students, you need to know that we try to figure things out with you on this, that if this is the type of workshop we need to develop, we'll start working it. Okay, we'll start trying to think one through. And you may well see Theresa again because we drug her in there. And you may be seeing Angela over at the counseling center because we drug her in there, or somebody else. But the idea is that we want you to succeed. If I have to say that 50 times for you to hear it, we want you to succeed. And your success is our success. Our success isn't, you know, like the library having a certain amount of volumes and all those things, okay? Theresa's success isn't that she has, you know, a list of certain number of students. It's how we help you be able to succeed to your best potential. And so that's kind of what I'm devoted to. Theresa, you got anything else you want to add to this moment?
I have a question for you as the OSL,
Okay.
not necessarily as the library. Do you guys have any specific, because you do the tutoring and I know that you help with writing and things like that.
Yeah, and the Writing Center comes here when we have the open thing. Right now, they're still virtual where they are, but the Writing Center is planning on coming back and using some of our space when we finally can go public in the sense of everyone public. But go ahead.
Great. So do you guys have any individual coaching for students?
Katie, you want to answer that? Because that really is the WC online program that you've put together.
Yeah, so do you mean individual coaching, like just one-on-one tutoring?
Not necessarily one-on-one tutoring, more along the lines of one-on-one academic success kind of coaching. You know, something, because I know Elaine does some of it, but she has a very large number of students that she works with. So one-on-one coaching is not something that she can do consistently for students, you know, not bi-weekly or bi-monthly or things like that. So I was just wondering if you guys had anything that you had talked about, or if it even crossed your plate.
There's a slice of that in the peer mentors.
Okay, right, okay.
And most of the peer mentors have done very well at school here. They've been very, very tenacious. Some of them had hard times to begin with and brought themselves up and did it with help. And those are the ones we tend to try to send out, especially. There was, I'll just say this in general, how's that? There was a student who really, because of the hard times with COVID-19 and all the restrictions, okay, for trying to keep people healthy, really didn't get to know anybody in her class or anybody even in their dorm because of how everybody was trying to keep everyone safe. And believe it or not, the mother called, and then we got to talk to the different people and figured out we could move forward for the student. And we had a peer mentor go talk to them. And that peer mentor said that it was an hour of constant conversation that this person just needed to get things out.
Mm.
And then was asking, okay, on this one, how should I face that? And so they talked through that. And it was academic level on that. And one of the things about the peer mentors is that we try to have a good swath of majors so that each peer mentor, and I think Katie does this too, and Sophia with the tutors, to have a good swath of tutors. You may be getting taught math by somebody who's chemical engineering, okay? Chemical engineering is their major, but they know math.
Mm-hmm.
you see. So there's some smarts there for a couple of different programs. With the peer mentors, maybe you need some assistance in the biology department. Well, we've got probably 5 biology peer mentors, okay? And what we did is we listed our mentors out and put their majors behind them so that if a student wanted to contact one of the peer mentors, they could. And it allows them for those types of conversations. But I think for Katie and Sophie is, a lot of times, a lot of our work here is math and physics and chemistry. Mm-hmm. And then I would say after that, it would be biology. Okay. But the idea is that we have a good swath of students who have been through the mill and they know how the registrar's office works. They know when it's time to help you, Theresa, for example, saying, you need, talking to a student, I think you need to go talk to Theresa. And if you need me to help you do that, please let me know because Theresa will help you, or Angela, or whatever. And we work very hard to use the multitude of skills and skill sets that our students have if we can, because they're always, I think, the more approachable people. And I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It did, absolutely. I had thought that there was a piece to the peer mentoring, but I wasn't absolutely sure. So that's great. And Katie, I do think that the tutors also coach in a lot of ways, for learning systems and things like that. So, yes. And I know that a lot of my students that go to the OSL for assistance really enjoy the tutors. They connect with them. They feel safe going most of the time. Once they've gotten there, it's an initial step. So you guys do a great job. And I think that students are lucky to have such a great tutoring system and peer mentoring system. And so.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's working for them.
Katie and Sophie are so busy trying to make sure everything's working. Sometimes they don't get to hear those comments. So thank you, Theresa. It's a good thing.
It is. I mean, I think you guys do an excellent job, and students forget to say thank you, right? I mean, they forget that they would have not passed the class without that tutor. And your tutors go above and beyond a lot of times. So, yep.
Well, everyone, we have taken an hour again of your time and been glad you've walked with us on the journey. This is Tech Spotlight, and we want to thank Theresa Kappel for all that she got to share with us, as well as for interaction from those who are listening. And I'm glad that you were with us on this conversation. So please note that these are all listed up, the ones we've been doing in the Tech Spotlight channel that is inside of the Discord channel in general for the peer mentor programs, as well as for the OSL tutoring. I think you can get to them that way too. But the idea is we wish for you to succeed, and we hope that we see you as you come here to Tech and we get to help you. Okay. Thanks, Theresa.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Okay. Bye for now, everyone.